Good evening, beautiful people, and welcome to the 2021 Project Involved Showcase Q&A. My name is Francisco Velasquez, and I am the Associate Director for Project Involved. We're sure that you were impressed by the short films you watched, and hopefully they have touched and enriched your lives. These shorts were either written, directed, produced, shot, or edited by a Project Involved fellow. I want to extend my deepest gratitude to Ana Sousa, Gia Rigoli, Irene Suico Soriano, and Ash Hoyle, all Project Involved programmers who so tastefully curated the program for you. Now, let me introduce you to tonight's moderator, Ash Hoyle. Ash is an integral member of the programming team at Sundance Film Festival, working to support director of programming, Kim Yutani, who's also a Project Involved fellow. Ash also has been involved in programming at Outfest Los Angeles, New Fest New York, Damn This Heels Film Festival, Sun Valley Film Festival, Overlook Film Festival, and AFI Fest, and has worked in production at ABC, Missing Pieces, and the Annoyance Theater. With you, I leave you the fabulous Ash Hoyle.
Hello, everyone, and thanks so much for joining us. It's such an exciting night. We're so proud to present these incredible short films as part of the showcase this year. And yes, a huge thank you to Irene and Gia and Anna who programmed the showcase alongside me. And thank you to these fellows and all the fellows who shared their work since the program with us. It's such an impressive pool of filmmakers here with us tonight. So thanks for being here, and we're going to dive right in. I'm going to go film by film and ask a couple of questions of my own, but please feel free to get in the Q&A chat box and let us know what you are wondering about from the folks who are joining us tonight. So I'm going to start with the opener of the show, BJ's Mobile Gift Shop and director Jason Park, who's with us today. Hey, Jason, how are you?
Good. How are you? Thanks for having me, Ash, and everyone at Film Independent.
So pleased. I'm so glad to share this. Of course, we were very glad to also present this film at Sundance. I'm curious, of course, to hear a little bit about the impetus for this project. It's such a fresh premise. It really makes it stick out. Where did your sort of creative journey with BJ's Mobile Gift Shop begin?
Yeah, you would think after going through a little bit with, through some festivals, I'd have a good answer for that. But honestly, it's still something that I'm still pondering about. I think the film itself, BJ's, I think the character kind of represents a culmination of individuals that I grew up with in Chicago. I think, BJ's is, for me, a film that represents a specific minority experience in a Midwest region. And so trying to want to do that, having a little bit of homesickness and just, wanting to make a film out in Chicago, it was just kind of a combination of several different factors that, led to this story. And I think the root of it is just kind of, I think I'm naturally drawn to quote unquote hustler culture. I think it's just, it's very cinematic. I think it's very interesting, and it just says a lot about the character. And so I think that on top of just the city itself, it kind of lent itself to, where we started with.
Totally. And it's a perfect segue to my next question, which was about Chicago. It feels like such a character in the film. So can you tell us more about why it felt like the right place suited for the story you wanted to tell?
Yeah, I mean, I'm born and raised from Chicago. So, that was that was kind of the biggest thing. But I also think, Chicago is such a cinematic city. And I think a part of the reason why I really wanted to go back was to kind of really see a visual quality that I think we haven't really seen before, at least through film, at least in short films. And so, I think the city itself was, it was an easy shoot as well. In terms of the city is a good city to shoot in. It's a very filmmaker friendly city. And so it was just a lot of combinations and factors that led us to that, to that choice.
Totally. And the film is so amazing because it has so many juxtaposing feelings. There's a humor and there's a quirkiness to it. And of course you are tackling some really big, issues about, Korean American experiences and things like that. Can you speak to how you held it all together within the framework of one short film?
I think that was always kind of like the big fear is that, you know, with short films, you don't want to put too much into that pot. And so that was constantly something that I was a little bit nervous of. And I think that works when you have a good team and when you have a good editor, like, you know, Zoe Kraft, who was our editor on this, who can always kind of keep the film in focus. And, you know, you have your producing team and your other collaborators, you know, that was all part of the process of, you know, keeping it honed in and keeping it figured out. So, you know, that was a big thing, is making sure that, yeah, we're exploring a lot of different elements, but we wanted to keep it contained and focused and still make it work within that time frame.
Totally. And yeah, the collaboration, it worked. Very focused.
Yeah.
And speaking of collaboration, what was it like working with your lead actor? I feel like Johnny Boy's performance is so crucial to the success of the film.
Yeah.
So charming. How did you cast him, and also what was it kind of like in your working relationship?
Johnny Boy, I mean, we've known each other for a few years. And so when I started writing the script, you know, I kind of had a pretty clear image of who this person was. And because I've known Johnny Boy for a bit, we went to camp a few years ago. And I think once I start to see him in that picture slowly, it was literally him or bust. I don't know anyone else who could have played that role. And I think he started to blend in with that character. And he will say that, you know, this is kind of a bit of his own personality. And so, you know, his infusion to that and him kind of meshing through it really helped to round out the character. But yeah, there was only one person who I could imagine playing this role, and that was him.
Totally. And I'm going to ask you my final question, which I will ask everyone. So of course, unfortunately you're on the chopping block, but everyone else can start taking notes and preparing their answers. But what was it about your time maybe at Project Involved that prepared you to make this film? Or how did your work there sort of speak to the production that you pulled off this time?
Well, you know, that's a good question. That's a funny question, because I think I actually talked to Francisco like 6-7 months later after we shot BJ's, and we haven't even started post yet, just to catch up. But I think Film Independent and Project Involved specifically, like, I was so new to filmmaking, and I just moved to LA like a year before. And so I didn't go through film school. I didn't know what I was doing, and I felt very out of place in terms of like all my other fellows who knew so much and had so much experience. So for me, Project Involved was kind of like the initial education to understanding the entire ecosystem with what is filmmaking, from the creative, from the concept, all the way through post. And so it was a learning curve, but I think it was such an essential part of kind of my own journey, at least in the beginning, of really understanding like what this process is like and what this creative journey is like. And, you know, I think because we got to do a short film, it really showed me like how important it is to do a short, but also how important it is to, you know, to understand the process and to understand, you know, it's not just about one short film. It's about creating a body of work that shows several different places and several different versatilities of what you can do. And so I think for me, it was such a important initial beginning to like my own experience.
Totally. And yeah, BJ's speaks volumes to your talent. So congrats, and thanks again for letting us present the work. A reminder, if you have any questions for Jason or the rest of our filmmakers, they'll all stick around the whole time. So feel free to drop them into the Q&A box. But next up is Yoo Lee, who directed A Poem by Alba. Another film that I feel like is unlike anything I'd seen before. It's so original in particular. Can you share with us again a little bit about how this project came to be and what drove you to make this
Sure. I think it's different because it's, first, it's animation, it's stop motion. And, you know, it's been a long process for me. It's sort of like I feel like a metamorphosis. So I was a little lost. I was going through a little bit of midlife crisis, going, okay, I want to do something else with my life. And what is it? And I couldn't really figure out what I wanted to do. And in that journey, I just stumbled upon stop motion like 4 years ago. And I just completely fell in love with the craft and just just a rigid regimen of the process of stop motion animation. And I lived in a city called Jersey City. It's a really it's a very mixed race urban city that is much like a very small town, nowhere like I ever lived before. And I had incredible neighbors, and one of them was Alba, who is now passed away. And when my daughter was born, all the old lady came over, and it was winter, and I cooked for them, and they were laughing, they're holding my babies, and she just happened to recite a poem she wrote for her daughter when she was born. And we were lucky enough to have that recording. So I held on to it, and it was something that always made me smile. And when I stumbled upon the journey of becoming an animator and storyteller, I knew I always wanted to animate that poem somehow. I just wasn't good enough. It took me a while. And when COVID happened, and I was working on this project, it kind of saved me, because it was something that was coming from a place of love that gave me focus, and a lot of people mentored me to make that short. So it really pushed me to tell the story about Alba and her poem.
That is so gorgeous. That's so beautiful, and leads me to my next question, which is when you're dealing with material that is to some extent nonfiction, how did you make sure to really honor the truth of Alba's life and the truth of her words, and how did you also give yourself creative license with the film that you were making?
Absolutely. Yeah, that's a very good question. So it had to come from a place of love and respect, and it's the whole story came from the end, the poem. So I worked backwards, and of course I infused my own story with her story to make it a complete little moment of her life until the end. And I think, having a visual background, design background, I always start with a color. So I laid out the color first, and the color kind of led me to, the story that I was going to tell. And there were 3 colors I picked out, and throughout the whole movie, I made sure I stayed within those colors and textures to tell the story.
Yeah, and you talked about, hoping to grow your animation chops as you made this film. How did you develop this specific style? I mean, I would say, and certainly I think my compatriots agree, I think you're great at it. So shocking to hear you say you're good enough. But how did this sort of specific style come together for you?
Yeah, I always loved craft, and I always loved making things, and so making something with my hand and holding something is really important to me. So that's why I'm not really keen on 3D animation, because you sit in front of a computer. But I love stop motion because you're literally interacting with your materials and puppet, and you get to hold your animation in your hand. So there's nothing like it. So it's, you really get into it. And you're also in control of performance of your actors. Yes, the voice actors play a big part, but as far as the physical performance is concerned, you're in control as you animate. So it's really, there's no way to cut corners. So somebody like me who is quite obsessive, it really kind of takes my personality in a way that's complementary, but it is extremely hard. And I think you have to love it. And otherwise, there's just no way. It's just so difficult to do because you're moving every frame, 24 frames a second. And I just think that every project, I set a goal to just elevate my skills just a little bit at a time. And so hopefully, Alba did that a little bit.
I see it. What do you think of animation and stop motion specifically? How did that speak to this story that's about, isolation and about grief? What did you think was the connective tissue there? Why was this the right way to bring this to life?
I think what stop motion allows you to do is to be able to tell a story like grief, kind of like digest it and make it kind of beautiful. When I see a story, the poem by Alba, it is ultimately a sad story, but it's quite beautiful in a way that I think her life was. So, and I think what contributes to that is I always go back. I keep saying this, but the color, texture, combination of it all, and as well, and lighting, which is so crucial to live action and stop motion. I think all of them and cinematography contribute to coming up with images that are hopefully memorable.
Absolutely. And this is a little bit unfair because I know that you made this project a little bit before your time in Project Involved, but how is it informing, even how you speak to it now and what the future of the life of the film is going to be? What's your experience in that way?
Yeah, no, it's really important because, I like what Jason said about being an outsider, and I certainly felt like an outsider coming into animation or even, storyteller. And I think what Project Involved did is give me a little bit of validation that I can tell a story, that anybody can if you have passion for it. And there is room for everybody, including somebody like me. So it gave me hope. And just by doing so, I think Francisco knows, the project I'm working on next, I'm still telling a story about Jersey City, and Alba's still in it. But this time it's a comedy, but it just makes you work really hard. It gives you fuel for your passion. That validation and that encouragement, the Project Involved, and making room for people like me gives me hope that there are voices that matters,
Wow. I'm so glad we're recording this because that will be the new testimonial, I hope, on all the Project Involved. Sheri, that's gorgeous. And thank you for sharing your film with us tonight. It's so fabulous. I'm going to shift over to the Of Hearts and Castles team. Thank you both for being here. We have a director and we have a DP. So excited to hear a little bit more about what the process of making this film was like for you two. So just to start, I'm really curious to hear what your thoughts are on what this film kind of means playing it now after a long time of isolation for a lot of people. What do you think your film says about connection and what might be special about sort of playing it nowadays?
Hi, hello everyone. First of all, thank you so much for having me. And that's very interesting because I wrote this before the pandemic and we shot it right before the pandemic, and we actually have to finish it during the pandemic till like June, July. And everyone has been connecting a lot because of the hack that happened in the movie. Because for so long we couldn't really even hack, right? Yeah. Everyone was very connected to that hack and to that intimacy, that people were lacking all the time. So in a way, I think it brought like some sort of hopeness, I believe. That's what people have been telling me. And I didn't even think about it myself, it's just like when you put it out there and people start watching it and then people tell you what it meant to them. So I would say that moment was the main thing, with the pandemic and everything that was happening.
Yeah, thank you. Anything to add, Bongani?
Yeah, I think there's a lot to do, I guess, with intimacy in the film. And I think, at least for me and from a lot of people that I've spoken to, I think this idea of being more intimate, being more vulnerable, I think we really kind of dived into that, this introspection during that pandemic. And I think a lot of those elements are reflected in the film, and people kind of caught onto those in ways, that were unexpected.
Definitely. And I think one of the successes of the film is how you're able to capture this great hopefulness and this feeling of resilience, and also obviously a lot of sadness, a lot of grief, speaking to you a little bit. How did you capture that? And, particularly Bongani, visually, how did you kind of make sure you were holding all of those juxtaposing sort of images and feelings in your film?
Well, I think a lot of it came from, I guess, the story that Rubén wanted to tell in terms of these two people kind of finding each other. And so a lot of, I guess, my way through it was how to, give those characters and the actors the space in the film. And so we had a lot of moments that, we're following the character individually and then eventually kind of bring them together and, playing a bit with time and how Rubén wanted to cover it. but I feel for the most part that the cinematography is kind of simple. I feel like I just kind of let them do their thing and watch what the actors are doing and really kind of try extract that hold on frames or try make as much happen in the master as possible. And I think that was some of the way that I felt was the best to capture it.
Yeah.
We also wanted to play with the colors, with the blue and red, like almost like meaning each color is for each character, because one is more in the blue side, like being sad, and the other one has the passion, so we wanted to almost like give a color to both of them, and that's why when they're in the living room, it's kind of like dreamy, because we want to create like that special connection, not just through them or their performances, but also through the environment that they were, in that moment.
Absolutely. And speaking of performances, these two are so strong. How did you find these folks, and how did you get the chemistry to where it was on screen? It was so rich.
So Luis, who plays Angel, he actually, I had him on Facebook and I reached out to him. Like I never met him in person. It was just like, like people that because you have like a lot of friends in common and everyone is in the in the industry. So I reached out to him because there was something to me, his eyes, because he has this like rough look but very, very tender eyes, and I reached out to him to read for the table read, and I told him, like, if you like the story, of course I'll consider you for the role, but this for now it's just for the table read. And we were in the table read and I was just like, okay, it's him, like it's him. And we still did some auditions, but it was always him. And I actually told him when we cast him. And then Marcus, who's Jonathan, who plays Marcus, that was just through audition. We went to Access Actors, I believe it was, and he auditioned, and we really like him also. Honestly, the chemistry, they already had it. I think when I was like trying to find two people, I was of course looking at the performances, but I also wanted to find people that I knew they were gonna connect, and I always had the feeling they were going to connect easily. We met like a week before. It wasn't like a rehearsal, it was more like for them to meet, and then we just read the script a couple of times and we just talk about breakups, we share our own experiences. So we really connected, the three of us, and we created a special bond. And I think that on set, it was just thanks to that conversation and sharing our breakups experiences, of our, love experiences all together, it made us like create like a safe space for mostly they two, but also for me to be able to talk to them. And the chemistry was already there thanks to that conversation, I believe.
Thank you. And I have a feeling that there might be a little bit of a project involved story, just because here you both are. Tell me a little bit about what you learned, what you brought forward, and perhaps what it had to do with the two of you working on this film together.
Yeah, well, for me, Project Involved was a great experience, of course, and to me, the most important thing was the collaborations that I've been able to find, not only working there, but afterwards, as you can see. Sheri is also another fellow that she couldn't be here today, but she was also producing along with me, and I reached out to them, to Sheri and Bongani, and they liked the story and they wanted to be part of it. And I think we're gonna keep working together. And have another short film, and I have another fellow helping me also in the other short film. So I think the most important thing for me, of course, of the experiences that we have together, is like finding this community to collaborate and keep helping each other. Like we keep helping each other. We keep getting emails from one of another about, hey, this person's looking for an editor, this person's looking for a writer, or something like that. So to me, it's the thing that I take with me the most, and the opportunity to have that thanks to Project Involved.
Yeah, I think for me it's the same thing. I mean, I think we learned so much from all the people who came in to speak to us throughout. And insider kind of nuggets that you wouldn't find in any book, in any class, in any place, and that was I think, valuable, absolutely. But the thing that I've walked away with the most is, the connections with fellows that I still have. And, for all of my projects, I think I've collaborated with some of the people from those shorts, from the stop motion and from the live action, like again, and some of them multiple times, like with Diana, that I think we've worked multiple times, and continue to do so and reach out to people as like a resource just for, other projects or things, in commercial, in narrative. And it's just been this really great community and a place for me to find, especially I was like new to LA and kind of had nobody. So it was great to all of a sudden have, this whole cohort of 30 folks that are, collaborating and watch out for each other. And the greater kind of film independent community as well has been fantastic.
Yeah, well, thank you to you both. And it's your collaboration was very strong. Thank you for representing Project Involved so well. And for segueing into another strong Project Involved collaboration. Bongani's not going away. Let's talk a little bit about the Goldfish. Deanna and Melanie, welcome. Thank you for sharing your piece with us. I'll start by asking, obviously, there's a crucial metaphor to your story, so smartly rendered, and so it really comes off the page. Where did this come from, and why did you choose it?
Insofar as the Goldfish, the story, for the writer-director Ashley Brim, it was a very personal story for her, and so it's something that she'd had with her for a long time, and she was just trying to find the right avenue to tell that story. And when she sent me the script, I just knew that I had to do this film with her, and then that's how it all started, I guess.
And the rest of you, how did you come on board? I'm sure it's another Project Involved sort of story.
Yeah, I think for me as Diana, I think kind of connected me with Ashley, and just like any other project, kind of interviewed for it. And I think, I really like the story and how kind of deep it went into, the kind of story of someone who's adopted, which wasn't something I had, seen before, much represented, and just some of the issues, with race and with mothership and kind of things like that were in it as well, that kind of really made it really deep. And, I guess we've vibed in the interview and eventually, worked on the project together, which was great.
And yes, I'm the same. I came on board because Diana said, I've got a script and I think you'd really like it. And I did really love it. So yeah, I did the same thing as Bongani. I met up with Ashley for a coffee and we got on well. So I came on board.
Yeah, great. And it's great to have you all here because you have such different perspectives on the project coming from different angles. What were the biggest challenges that you sort of faced in putting this together in each of your individual roles?
Shall I go last because I'm editing? Yeah.
Or you can start
producing.
Doesn't matter. Yeah.
As far as producing goes, obviously, it was quite a big cast with a lot of extras. So there was a lot of time in that. And also, it's quite a complicated story to shoot in that way as well. So it's just, there was a lot of pre-production, a lot of planning, finding the right locations was really, really important. Obviously, with like most shorts, you're working on a really limited budget. So it's trying to do so much with, very limited means. But also I think at the timing of our shoot, we shot in the first week of March 2020.
Wow.
And so there was a lot of discussion about whether we go ahead with the shoot or not. And so I think for me, that was kind of like the biggest thing at the time. Like we were all prepped and we were all ready. And then we were kind of like, oh, what should we do? What should we do? And we actually talked to all of the casting crew, and absolutely everyone wanted to go ahead and shoot on the week that we shot. And I think that if we hadn't have done that, we wouldn't have this film here today.
Yeah, wow. Incredible timing, really.
Yeah, I think for me the biggest challenge was trying to find the right location, because we had so many kind of connecting pieces and phases that we needed to go through, and looking at locations and just finding what would work perfectly, shooting it over 2 days to make it feel like it's the same party on the same day, and managing the weather, all of that sort of stuff. And so Ashley and I spent a lot of time with like little toy soldiers, like on her kitchen table, trying to like choreograph what this party would feel like and where everybody is. And, eventually finding that perfect location. Once we had it, it was great, but, kind of have to work to get to that place.
Last but not least.
Yes. I'm very happy that you guys shot it, decided to go ahead and shoot it. Like, I remember being there on the days and we just had like so many extras, and thank goodness we decided to shoot it, because I don't think even 2 days later we would have been able to. Editing wise, I guess the challenge was the edit was, as probably everyone's film here was during COVID. So we had to edit remotely, and that was the first time I've edited fully remotely. We would get on Zoom every morning and just do it that way. I don't think, apart from that first meeting I had with Ashley having a coffee, I never saw her again in real life till, recently. So we just edited the whole thing on Zoom, but that was really good. I guess the benefit was some of my other jobs went away, so we really got to deep dive into this short film and edit it for a long time. And editing wise, I guess the challenges were combining like a bit of comedy and heart and drama. Which way to push it in certain scenes, one way or the other.
Yeah, and that's something I'm curious about a little bit deeper. The emotional beats of the film carry it, but they're so wide ranging. How did you each, in your different roles, work to construct them as distinct from one another?
I guess for me, my kind of guiding principle from Ashley was that the whole film was always about like her emotional state, and that's the way we would then kind of reverse engineer how the scene needed to be. And so we're kind of managing her kind of progression through this party and kind of unraveling, and this kind of pylon of experiences and things happening to her. And so, we're controlling how close or far or dear we were from her, how subjective we made it, how much we made it about her with like a blur of folks around, or kind of surrounding or immersing her and kind of crowding her and not giving her space, until the point that she tries to, escape, or, finding those moments where she has a little bit of peace. And so I think that's using that, picking the shots and picking the angles that felt expressed, that kind of journey.
Yeah, and I say like a lot of that was already right there on the page. Like that was, for Ashley's intention from day one. So, that made things also a lot easier, because there was a really clear roadmap of what Ashley wanted to achieve, and she was really good at communicating that to absolutely everyone. So actually, when we're on set and we're shooting, we weren't scrambling trying to figure things out. Like everything was planned, ready to go, and it allowed us the flexibility to spend more time when we needed to spend more time, and and obviously Ashley had the confidence to know, no, I've got this now, we can move right on. So and I think that was really, really, really important.
And how about in the ending process, the last bit? How did it come together on the editing room floor?
It actually came together. It came together really well. And then it was just a matter of refining it, making sure we're in Audrey's, the main character's, headspace. Just refining it, doing screenings. That was a really important thing. Especially because we couldn't sort of do them in real life. So it was just that process of showing people and getting feedback. And we did get the feedback along the way, like, oh wow, I haven't seen a story about adoption from this point of view. There's not that many stories about that, so that was really rewarding.
No, thanks to you each. And just a cheeky question to end with your team on. What was it like to work with the fish? How did that work? How did that work out? Well,
Wasn't real.
yeah. I figured Melanie had a good bit to do with it.
Yeah, it might have. You know what? It was real, but it wasn't on. It was yeah.
It wasn't on set. It wasn't
It
shot.
wasn't live, yeah.
It's still going strong out there somewhere, but yeah, that was some stock footage sort of combined with VFX, and that was actually, yeah, of course, that was a challenge in the edit.
Yeah.
And that was a lot. Yeah, we did it. I mean, of course, a VFX person, did that, but yeah, that was a lot of back and forth in the edit, and it was kind of very cute. Yeah.
Came off swimmingly, dare I say.
Yes.
And lastly, let me know what did you think you guys all carried forward into the project from Project Involve? What did you learn that you brought with you other than your collaborators?
Well, obviously the collaboration. There was actually another Project Involved fellow that was involved in the production team as well, Jackie Stone. And so it was actually quite a lot of fellows on this shoot, which was wonderful. But yeah, I mean, for me in general, it was absolutely like the network of Project Involve and that community that has been like really, really essential to me in my career. You know, as an immigrant, as someone who didn't go to school in America, it's really, really difficult to sort of get a foot in the door in the industry. And so for me, and with the types of stories that I like to tell, I, found living in America quite difficult in trying to, find those stories and, help bring them to screen. And through Project Involve, it's, given me that community. It's allowed me to find my people, and it's allowed me to really show why these stories are so important and why they need to be told and supported.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, I agree. I agree with Diana that, I mean, for me, working in Project Involve meant a lot. At the screenings, we had people coming up afterwards saying, thank you for telling that story. And I feel the same for the Goldfish. And on a personal note, it was good to have my editing mentor, because she also watched this film. She stays with me in a way, so she watched this film and gave feedback on that, which was really helpful.
Yeah, I think I'll just add one more thing. Collaboration again, but I think it has been really great to see all the films that other Project Involved fellows are making. And it really does kind of enrich your kind of experience, your perspective. I think there is a lot of just almost like personal growth just from seeing the diversity of stories and the filmmakers that you work with. I think whatever that is, you kind of carry that forward into, every new project that comes along. It helps you kind of see things from different perspectives, just from your own, but just because of all the things you've learned from other fellows as well and their films.
Well, thanks to the three of you, and onto a film from your fellow, Diante Singley with State of Being a Father. Thank you. And it's so exciting to have this because it's, a nonfiction piece, obviously.
Yeah.
Can you start by telling us a little bit about your subjects? They're so engaging. They're so vulnerable and open. How did you select them? And then how did you kind of build that trust?
First of all, thank you for having me. And I'm also super honored to be here with the rest of these fellows. And you guys made some amazing films. So thank you for letting me be a part of it. But yeah, those are just my friends. Those are kids I grew up with, and so it just kind of happened very naturally. I think this scene was originally supposed to be a small piece of a much larger narrative for a different project entirely, and then because of COVID and other external issues, that project kind of was put on the shelf. But when we were filming it. Again, it was a very small, kind of unimportant scene. So I told them, just pretend to be whoever you want. You can make up stories. You can say or do whatever you want. But, as I said, these are my friends. So once the cameras are rolling and we're talking and we're, roasting each other and we're freestyling and then we're starting to get vulnerable and share stories, everyone just started really, really, opening up and being honest about their lives, their childhoods, their past, their traumas, myself included. I just had to cut myself out, obviously, but I was right there with them, talking and discussing my life. And so, these are just my friends telling their real life stories, and their stories are are important and meaningful and impactful. And so I wanted them to be seen. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that proximity and definitely the authenticity really shine through. I'm not surprised to hear you had known these folks beforehand. The framing of the film, the closeness of it, and the black and white choices. Tell me where those came from. They're so crucial to how it kind of pops in the end. How did you think about this visually?
Yeah, well, it's funny because the way that the scene was supposed to be shot was originally just like two wides. I had two cameras that were just going to be on tripods, filming at 2 different angles, just for like basic coverage. But as we were talking and as I was just doing camera tests, I started just like getting really into their space. And I thought I was going to throw them off because, they're not like professional actors, at least not all of them are. And it just I think it just added fuel to the fire and made them open up more, because they really did feel like I wasn't just shooting something behind a camera. They felt like I was moving in the space with them. And from that point on, I mean, I got 3 hours of just close-up footage, just roaming as we were talking and debating movies and hip hop. And there's like a whole 5-minute Kanye West scene that got cut out because it's 5 minutes long, but there was so much content. And I think it just obviously lends the intimacy of it. And then to answer the second part of your question, besides the part that I'm like broke and a really bad cinematographer, that's why I made it black and white. But the emotional and artistic reason is just because it's a Black story. I grew up, I'm a Black man. My friends are obviously all Black, and it's a very specific Black story. And I just felt like, when you shoot it in black and white like that, and you just see the way that their skin is able to pop and how powerful and beautiful they look in front of camera, like it's in my humble opinion, it's really beautiful and amazing. So I just wanted to highlight them and show them for like the kings that they are.
Totally. The subject matches the form for sure. And on the subject, obviously the film is very interested in Black fatherhood specifically. What drew to that? Obviously somewhat organic in the conversation. And what do you hope that this film sort of says about it?
I mean, yeah, I think as, I grew up without a father, and I think, there's a lot of things that happen in your life that, when you're a child, you're not really sure why. When you mature and become an adult and you start to really become, introspective, you realize like, oh, pieces are connecting and things happen for a reason. And I think, all my friends who were there have felt that one way or another. And when I was growing up with these kids, we didn't have the vocabulary to really describe how we felt or our emotional journeys. But now as adults, we can kind of go back and we can scan our entire friendship and our entire relationship and see how it was affected by, our individual and shared traumas. And I also like to think about this film, and I wouldn't say this is like a one-to-one correlation, but I feel like this film very much is like a representation of like the past, the present, and the future of Black masculinity and Black fatherhood. And I think each friend in each segment represents, one of those things. And so for me, I'm trying to like run the gamut and address this kind of really nasty stereotype that the country has about Black men and Black fathers, but also trying to address the real life trauma that a lot of Black men experience, especially Black men who want to be fathers.
And yeah, it was really a multiplicity of perspectives that you put together. So props to that. And tell me, how did your experience in Project Evolve inform the way that you approached this project?
Yeah, I was making this while I was making my Project Evolve short. So they were happening simultaneously. And although they're very different and disparate shorts, they both do revolve around the idea of parenthood and Black fatherhood. And I think, I'm working on this like kind of relatively big Project Evolve short that has a lot of manpower and, a little bit of money behind it. And I'm also working on this short film that is just me and my 3 friends and no one else is involved. And I think I think they were informing each other simultaneously. I think a lot of the kind of emotional catharsis that I was experiencing through this short, I was channeling through my Project Evolve film, and I was using this to reassure my decisions with Project Evolve. And I think conversely, I was using Project Evolve, my experience, my short, and my friends to really like hone into this short and figure out what I actually want to say and what is important and what is not important. For example, do I need a 5-minute Kanye West scene? And so for me, it was very much like I was able to show this short to friends in the program, producers, and use their expertise and their knowledge to help me kind of craft this kind of small project. But I do feel like they do, in some weird way, they are companion pieces, which is kind of fun.
Yeah, no, definitely. And thanks for sharing with us again. And now we'll turn to certainly the last, but definitely not the least, our excellent, stellar knockout closer. We have the cinematographer, Francis Kroon, here with us. So excited to have you here. Thanks for being here. Thanks for letting us play your wonderful film.
Thank you. I'll quickly just do a shout out just on what Diante said, because I think I ended up shooting his project involved Schultz, and I think what he's saying is very evident in the performance of the main character of Hoyle. But unto where.
No, that's great. No, we love the cross fellow support for sure. Tell me a little bit. I mean, the cinematography was so critical to bringing this really challenging, mysterious, sort of dark vision to life. How did you collaborate with your director, Gabriella, and how did you guys prepare to shoot this?
We had like a lot of discussions. Gabriella is a super visual person, so she had quite specific ideas on stuff. And then at the same time, she's also really, really collaborative, and also very like, if something's like a roadblock in terms of production, she finds a lot of creative solutions that make the script even better, which I think is a big talent. So we sat down and the first thing we did is we talked about the emotions in the script, because there's a lot happening visually that has emotional significance. So we got on the same page about like what the audience should feel and what was happening for the character. And then from there we started exploring ideas and references, and found like a visual language that we felt communicated that emotion. And then that went on to like the technical choices, and very organic too. Like we had a set plan, but on set it also, we found ourselves doing different things.
Yeah. Well, it certainly is evident that you pivoted and you nailed it. The dance in the film is so well captured. How did you achieve that? It's, a very specific sort of movement to capture. How did you navigate that?
So I think we had an amazing choreographer, Celeste, and then our protagonist, Shakira Barrera, is like super talented as well. So that makes a big difference in terms. I'm just like holding the camera, right? But it's interesting because I think I find when you emotionally connect to a story and you understand what stuff means, then you kind of start to become glued to the performances. And it's you kind of not there really. It's just them and like an invisible person holding the camera. And so it just kind of happened naturally. There were one or two with the tighter stuff where we did like one or two takes, but it was very like, from the gut. And it wasn't like, oh, we're going to be here and then here and then here. It was very much working with what was there and working with the other dancers moving around. Yeah,
and talk to me about that visual language. It feels so specific what you two sort of put together. Talk me through where did it come from, and how did it sort of blossom into where we found it.
So I'll just talk a little bit about it, but it's the story is talking about 3 generations of women and this trauma in the kind of form of a curse that gets transferred. And so we talked a lot about like fragmentation and wholeness, and also moving to a new country away from your hometown. That does create something in one's psyche. So we did a lot. You'll notice a lot with the sisters, and with Shakira, we did a lot of fragmentation, while the grandmother was much more center framed. We played with a lot of stuff like that, and a lot with colors related to that. So it's kind of along those lines that we made decisions with composition and lighting and movement. And
it really spoke all so very well to the story, and it really made it pop. And tell me, what do you hope people walk away with from your film? What message do you hope it sends, or what do you think, you hope people sort of feel as they leave the screening of your film and the screening of our showcase, as we ended with you guys?
Yeah. Well, I think that's more for Gabriela to answer. Because I'm just a cinematographer.
No just.
I mean, I think it's like, I can say what I got from it, or what I felt, reading the script. And I think, I think we all sit with stuff that we've inherited, that we, as you get older, then you're like, oh, wow, this isn't mine. Like, this came from this place or that place. And then when you speak to your parents, you understand that there were all these kind of complex dynamics that were happening between people, but also situationally. And then when you sit there and you realize that you're like a part of a long line of people that have carried a lot of stuff, and then you kind of have to resolve it, and you're like, okay, maybe this didn't really happen to me, but it's part of the way that I behave and the way that I see the world, and now's the time to kind of examine it and decide whether this is something I want to carry on doing, or so for me, I felt like a sense of kind of release when watching it, something quite cathartic. And I don't really know what the emotion is, but it's kind of like if there's like a tightness, a feeling of space. That's what I felt from after reading the script. Yeah. And I hope that other people feel that as well.
Definitely powerful, definitely moving. And yeah, lastly, tell me, what did you carry forward from your Project Involve experience in making the short?
Well, firstly, I actually wouldn't have met Gabriela if it wasn't for Project Involve. In that short period before the pandemic, Israel did an event called Color Creative, which was shared through the community, or I don't know if it was from you, Francisco, I can't remember, but there was this event that Israel put together that Diante also came to, and it was in that I met Gabriela, and we had been like, yeah, let's have coffee, and then the whole world shut down, so like put on pause for a year. And then we came back together to do this a year later. But I think bigger than that too, I think because of the nature of what the film industry is, there can be like a certain amount of like competitiveness. And so it's really refreshing to be around people that are interested in like seeing other people succeed as well. And that was something that was definitely embodied on set, they were great producers, Rafael Tomasetto and Elena Sardina. They were also amazing in setting this kind of tone on set, and Gabriela Ortega, she very much embodies that kind of feeling, even though they weren't part of the program. It's still this kind of network that I think is quite amazing, because I think it really allows people to kind of blossom creatively. And then I can't go into as much detail as like Bongani and everyone, because they've obviously more years out of the program, and we had a bit of a weird year because it started and then everything went online. But yeah, I mean, it was a very special experience, and that kind of feeling and community is definitely something that's had a big impact on me.
Yes, and yeah, it was amazing to hear all of you speak to the community of Project Involved and how it really, powered these films both before and after. And it feels like tonight is very much part of that. So thank you again for being part of our showcase. Thank you again for being here with us tonight. And I'll kick it back to Francisco to say a final goodbye. But congratulations to you all on being part of the program tonight, and my deepest gratitude.
My mic is on now. I thank you all, you filmmakers that were able to show up tonight. And thank you for keeping on creating work, for giving us this pleasures and this beautiful stories that definitely touches, that definitely makes us better people. So thank you. I love you all. And the audiences are really lucky that you're making films. That's all I have to say. Ash, again, thank you for doing such a beautiful job with moderating. And to the audience, thank you for showing up and had this wonderful opportunity to speak to our fellows.